What's up, guys? So, let's take a break from Season 3 to talk about Attack on Titan Chapter 108. It's the beginning of the month, which means the new chapter is almost here. There was a lot going on in the last chapter, and I'm sorry I haven't had a lot of time to work on my manga discussion videos this month, with a new season coming out and all that, but hopefully I can make up for some of that here. I want to keep these manga reviews and discussions my main priority on this channel, so if you're waiting for my Season 3 episode reviews, they're in the works and they'll be here soon. But we need to talk about what's really important, and that is whatever the hell is going on in the manga right now. And I guess right now would be a good time to tell you that this video is going to contain lots and lots of spoilers, so if you haven't read the manga, then what are you doing with your life? And why on earth are you watching this channel? Not that I'm complaining, it just doesn't make a lot of sense to me, but anyway. If you don't want spoilers, you might want to click on something else. If you're all caught up though, then let's get to it. So in this video, there's a lot of things that we could discuss, but I want to talk about two things in particular. One is Historia and all the crap she's having to go through right now, and the other is Mikasa, and everything we learned about her in the last chapter. Let's begin with Historia. Now, I, like many others, made light of this a bit in my initial review, but let's get serious. This turn of events has huge implications for our characters and for the story as a whole. Now before I get into it, I need to correct myself from my last video on this chapter because the unofficial translation that I used for my review made it sound like the three things Zeke was talking about in his letter were options, but as you guys pointed out, they were in fact conditions, all of which need to take place for Zeke's plan to come to fruition, which as I said in my review makes a lot more sense. And as we saw in this chapter, Historia agrees to go along with Zeke's plan, to inherit the Beast Titan and produce an heir to the throne. So we know that Historia took on this responsibility by choice. However, when she looks at the mystery guy who comes out and talks to her, her expression seems to be either seething with hatred or afraid of him. I can't quite tell. Either way, she doesn't seem happy to see him. And my first thought when I actually saw this scene was, who is this guy, and is he the father? And well, on the discussion of the possible father, let's back up a little bit and think about how this decision may have been made. I feel like it's most likely, or maybe I'm just hoping, that Historia herself was allowed to choose who the father of her baby was going to be. I can't really imagine everyone else debating on who the best candidate for the father is and then ordering Historia to just go do it with him. And well, let's not forget that artificial insemination isn't really all that difficult, so it's possible she may have not had to actually sleep with anybody to get pregnant, which would be a plus for Historia considering she's, well, you know, pretty gay. What's more important though is what it means for the actual characters in this story. Whether Historia actually slept with someone or not, there is still going to be a lot of feelings surrounding this new child. And if the father happens to be a character we already know, I feel like there would be a lot more emotion invested in this child than if it was just some random person. And it would be pretty interesting. If the father is somebody we know, a thought I had while writing the script for this video is that honestly, I think the father might actually be Armin. Why? Well, like I said, I'm really hoping that Historia got to choose who the father of her child was going to be, and I just feel like with Armin being the gentle and kind person that he is, much like Historia herself, she would probably trust him the most in that kind of situation. And considering that Armin is most likely the narrator of the story, I think it would be interesting if Armin was actually telling this story, or writing this story, to the future descendants of the royal bloodline, and if this happens to be true, his own descendants. But why to you in 2,000 years? 2,000 years is a long time. Is this how long this time loop thing runs before it starts up again? Is Armin telling this to someone from the future, from the past, or is he trying to reach someone from the next time loop? Maybe he's telling this story to himself. Ooh. Also, if Armin and Historia had a baby together, that would kind of make my original theory about Armin being a Reese that I posted on this channel when I first started, that would kind of make it kind of true, you know, just a little bit, you know, by marriage or whatever. It works! Armin's a Reese now! Sort of. I was right all along. Also, that kid would be fucking adorable. They would have the biggest, bluest eyes that you ever saw. It would be ridiculous. On a much darker note, though, there is of course the possibility that Historia really didn't get a say in who the father would be. If that's the case, then strategically I would have to say the most likely person would probably be a noble from the Osmabito clan, since they are their only ally. I really don't like thinking about Historia being forced to be with someone she'd never met before in order to save everyone else, but I wouldn't put it past Isayama to do this either, especially since this wasn't an uncommon practice back in the day. Members from different royal families would often marry as a way of committing to alliances, distributing wealth, even as a form of trade. You know, as fucked up as that is. So it wouldn't be too far from reality if that happened. Another thing the identity of the father will inevitably affect is how good of a mother Historia is going to be. Let's not forget that Historia was horribly neglected by her mother. She didn't even speak to her or barely look at her until she was like 5 or 6, when one day Historia randomly decided to jump into her lap just to see how she would react. And how did she react? By smacking her kid in the face and telling her she wished she were dead. Wow, what a bitch. Historia, in her early years, lived a pretty secluded and isolated life on a farm, with the only people who ever talked to her being her grandparents, but really only to teach her how to work. Not even the other kids wanted to play with her for some reason. Historia found company only in her animal companions that she took care of. That is a really sad childhood, and it's no wonder she grew up feeling such a strong sense of rejection and self-hatred. Because no one seemed to want her around when she was a child, she internalized that she wasn't worth anything. Even worse, that she was a burden and deserved to be punished just for being alive. It was Ymir, as we saw in the snow scene in Season 2, who finally got Historia to feel some sense of self-worth, and that she didn't owe all these people who hurt her anything. She got her to believe in herself, and taught her how to be her own person, and not care about what other people think or say. And then she goes and runs off with Reiner and Bertolt. Wow, what a bitch. So what does all this mean? Well, unfortunately, when someone is abused or neglected as a child, it is highly likely that that person will continue the cycle of abuse or neglect unless there is some kind of intervention. Someone who never recovered from the pain of a dysfunctional childhood will tend to continue the same patterns that they learned from their parents, often even unknowingly, just because that's what they learned. Now, based on the look on Historia's face in these last 2 panels, she doesn't seem terribly excited to be a mother. But to be fair, she could just be feeling hormonal. Maybe she's hungry for something specific and they don't have it, or maybe Mr. Suspenders here forgot to put the toilet seat down. But okay, back to being all serious and shit. What I'm getting at here is this could go either one of 2 ways. Historia could find some sense of healing from being a mother, and giving her child all the love and attention she never got from her own mom. Or she could do the total opposite, and repeat the cycle of neglect all over again, leaving her child to be raised by someone else, and resenting them for just existing, instead of actually trying to be a parent. And I feel like this is a lot more likely to happen if 2 things are true. One is if the father of the child is someone we don't know, and 2 is if Historia did not get to choose who that person would be. And I definitely think it's far less likely that she would do the same thing that her mother did if the father ended up being one of our characters. I mean, think about it. It would be so cute. I mean, they're already kind of like a little family. It'd be like the whole squad's baby. Okay though, serious again. It's honestly kind of hard to imagine Historia with any of our guys, but if it was one of our characters, it would have the added benefit of making things probably a lot less complicated for Eldia in the future. Because if the father is someone with a lot of power, like a member of the Asmabito clan, that means that they have a say in what happens with this child. Which, despite all my hopes, that's probably the most likely direction this story is going to go. And now Attack on Titan becomes Game of Thrones. Yay, I guess. So once again, it looks like I'm going to have to revise what I said in my original review. I had called Mikasa's reveal a continuity error, but as it turns out, I was actually wrong about that. And as you guys pointed out in the comments, we have actually seen this bandage before. A few times, actually. We saw it in Chapter 53 and 54, and we also saw it in Chapter 90. We even saw it on the covers of Chapter 8 and 13. So, it seems Mikasa has always had her wrist covered, and I just never noticed before. So thank you guys, specifically Kate Lee and Alex Johnson, for pointing these out. So yeah, it looks like I spoke too soon. I stand corrected. So yeah, those are my thoughts on that. But before I wrap this up, I gotta touch on a few of the other things that are going on in this manga right now. Now first of all, Eren. You all saw how Eren was in this chapter. He has had enough of everybody's shit. And he actually threatened Hanji, saying that he could break out of that cell whenever he wanted. Seems to me that Eren is really anxious about getting that rumbling going. And I'm sure Zeke's secretly thinking in the back of his head how he can get to Eren. And of course the Servicor are really hesitant about getting them together. After all, that much unlimited power in one place could cause a lot of damage. But I have a feeling if it doesn't happen soon, Zeke and Eren are going to find their own way to get together. It might not happen in the next chapter, but man, that's going to be a really interesting scene to see Eren and Zeke finally meet in person. Another thing is Gabby and Falco. They escaped at the end of this chapter and now they're running free through the wilderness. So what's going to happen to them? Luckily they don't have to worry about Titans if they get outside the walls, but where are they going to go? Are they going to hijack a ship and sail off the island all by themselves? Well, they're going to be caught by somebody. The question is who, and whether Gabby's going to kill somebody else before that. Or maybe they'll make it all the way to the Forest of Giant Trees where Zeke is. I have no idea how they would know that he's there, but it is a possibility. Zeke did mention having them come out there, so who knows. Speaking of Zeke and Levi, apparently they've decided that the Forest of Giant Trees is the best prison for the Ape Titan, mainly because there's no rocks to throw, and because Levi can use his 3D maneuver gear in the trees if he needs to. But I'm still wondering how exactly this is going to work. How is this supposed to keep Zeke contained? Does Levi gotta watch him 24 hours a day now? Well, I guess he does. Another thing is Armin and Hanji. Now Hanji expressed in this chapter that she wished Erwin hadn't made her commander, that was one of his only mistakes. With Hanji feeling a lack of confidence in her ability to lead the Survey Corps, I feel like is opening the door for a new leader to step up, and we've been getting hints all throughout the story of Armin fulfilling that role. First of all, Armin has excellent leadership skills. Erwin expressed that he saw this in him during the Return to Shingeki arc. He even calls him their greatest weapon, because of his strategic abilities. And let's not forget that Armin is kind of obligated to fill Erwin's shoes, since his life was saved and Erwin's was sacrificed. So even though it was Levi's choice to give the serum to Armin, the fact that he's alive and Erwin is not kind of puts the weight of that responsibility on Armin's shoulders. In some sense, he now has to fill the shoes of the commander who died so that he could live. And now that we had this chapter with Armin narrating over the story, it seems like it's about time to see more of what's going on in Armin's head. Ever since the Return to Shingeki arc, Armin has been kind of quiet, which is surprising because seeing as he's the smartest character in the manga, aside from Zeke, I was expecting Armin to be doing some of his old analyses and reasoning and telling everybody his thoughts on what's going on, like he did in the Uprising arc. But we really haven't gotten any of that. We have no idea what Armin is thinking or feeling about everything that's happened. So it's about time we got to see some insight in what he's thinking about all this. It's clear neither Armin or Eren are very happy, and even though they're not even in the same room, the tension between them is definitely there. It's pretty unfortunate to see these two grown so far apart. But anyway, if Eren does try to escape and go find Zeke so they can use the coordinate and get it over with, I think Armin is going to be the only person who's going to be able to stop them. Not only because he's Eren's best friend, and is the only person who could possibly reason with him on a level that would challenge Zeke's influence, but also because he's the colossal Titan. If he wanted to, he could just turn into a Titan and just grab Eren and Zeke in both hands and just like hold them like that and just be like, whatever, you guys are done. I'm just gonna keep you here. Like this. Forever. But anyway, I guess we'll just have to see what happens. Thank you guys so much for watching my chapter 108 predictions video. Come back for my review when the chapter comes out, and keep your eye out for my season 3 episode reviews. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like, share, comment, and of course subscribe if you haven't already. Visit me on Facebook and Twitter, and check out my Patreon if you want to help support this channel. Thanks again so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Peace.